Hey, how you doing? Justin here with a very special guest, Mr. Mike Outram, a superb jazz guitar player. I'm a big fan of his teaching as well. He runs a website called Electric Campfire, which is electriccampfire.com. If you dig this, what we chat about, and you want to get some more jazz lessons, this is the man. He's who I go and see when I'm trying to get my jazz chops together. I go, Mike, help me, I can't do stuff. And yeah, I'm sure you'll hear he's got it going on. How you doing?
Doing all right.
Cool.
Thanks.
So, what we thought we'd do is like an introduction to jazz lead guitar and what the different approaches will be if you were going to start improvising. And we picked Autumn Leaves because it's a pretty straightforward tune. And so, I'm a new student. I've never played jazz guitar before, but I really, really want to play Autumn Leaves more than any other tune in the whole universe.
Okay.
And I know what the chords are. And I've learnt the melody, but that's all.
Okay.
So, how do I start improvising on that tune?
Well, I'd say the first thing you want to try is where you take the melody and just try and come up with some variations of the melody rhythmically, and just kind of tweaking it. I mean, one place to focus is at the very end of the phrase. Mm-hmm. So if you went, that's the first line of Autumn Leaves. Just to do something with this last note. So you could either maybe go up or maybe go down, like that, or
and you're going up or down to the next scale tone, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but your ears would probably, if you were trying to hit yourself at home, your ears should tell you if you went up.
Yeah,
just one fret. It might sound pretty weird.
Yeah. You can make it work, but that's kind of you're getting into some.
You could make almost anything work.
Yeah, right. Different territory there.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to do one round of that thing? I'll just do the chords and you play the melody, but change it a bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to count? Well, you play it in.
Okay.
I suppose.
2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully I'm sure they keep going with the tune or not, but you hopefully get the idea there that it's just that last note that you're kind of playing around with. You're still playing the melody fairly straight, but just exploring that the end note.
Yeah. So if you that's the first melody, and then the second bit is this. So I'm just tweaking that last.
And would you ever muck around with the other notes?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, this is like it's a kind of I guess it's a kind of bridge between full-on improvising and just playing the tune. You know. So at the moment we're just the first step is just learn the tune, so you can play it kind of. Just as it is, and then start tweaking parts of it. The easiest part, I think, to tweak is the end of the phrase, because you're not kind of aiming at anything. You know, if you start tweaking this bit, then you've got all the other stuff to play. It's kind of going to get in the way of your thinking. You know, or so if you tweak the end. Plus, it's a nice long note. You know, so you've got time.
You've got
a
gap to
do stuff with it.
Absolutely.
You know.
Cool. So I've mucked around with that a little bit, and I feel like I can experiment on that last note. Where do I take it to next?
Well, one thing about playing on chord changes is you want to sort of start using the chord changes to help you improvise. You know, I guess, or this is a particular tune where you can kind of just play one key through the whole thing. You can kind of play it in G major or E minor. This is the key that we're doing it in now. But also, it's actually got some really nice chords. If you get into the chords, by that I mean you can play something that kind of sounds like you're playing on the chord changes.
Yeah.
You know.
So just to feel, just because I wanted Mike to come at this from like the place where I was learning jazz guitar, and I'm still learning. I'm still a very beginner jazz guitar player, but when I got into it, I was still playing rock, and it was just all about playing in a key of a particular tune. And this song, because all of the chords except for the B7 are in the key of G major, you could kind of play G major scale over all of them, but it doesn't sound like jazz if you do that at all. And I found that really unrewarding and pretty disappointing trying to play it that way. So if you're going to think of the chords individually, you're thinking arpeggios, or you're thinking something else?
Yeah, I would probably start with just being able to keep track of what the root note is of the chord.
Okay.
So in this case, it's it goes A minor, D7, G major, C major, and then there's an F sharp half diminished chord, B7 and E minor.
Yeah.
And so I would just play those root notes, and to make it even more simple, I would limit it to just specific locations of the root. So I wouldn't say for A minor
you could jump. Yeah, okay.
You could play all these notes, but I'd just say just do one.
Mm-hmm.
Just do that one. A, and then here's a D, here's a G, here's a C, and there's a nice little pattern that happens as you do this. C there, F sharp, B, and E.
And then you'd improvise just with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do around. Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Now, so one of the things that you probably notice when Mike plays that is that he's really steeped in the kind of the jazz tradition, so he can make it sound way different than I would if I'm just playing those root notes. It doesn't sound the same as that.
Okay.
So how do they sound like that?
I mean, one thing is just doing a lot of listening to that kind of music to absorb the kind of rhythmic feel of that. Maybe a bridge to get you there would be to just play the rhythm of another tune, like the rhythm of even just this tune, but just on the one note. You know, so how we went. You could take that rhythm and apply it to this. So. That kind of idea, you know, you could just experiment with that and see if that kind of thing works.
There's definitely a certain type of swing and an accent though that you've got when you're doing that. Like it's got a different pulse than a rock guy will have, even eighth notes or whatever. And it's one of the things I still struggle with is to make my lines feel like that.
Right, right.
Did you ever consciously work on stuff like a time, what I refer to as a time feel? Did you?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of things you can do. I mean, just one thing is just learning that music and trying to listen closely to the phrasing and trying to absorb that. But one thing I can give to you now is, let's say if you wanted to play a scale of G like this, okay, and you wanted to make it go 1, 2, 3, 4, and use that kind of jazz kind of phrasing. If you think about the actual sound that you want to make first, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and putting the accents there and the phrasing and the slurs, then it's like you can approach the instrument and think about how to get that sound out of the guitar, rather than if you're just stuck in a position, then sometimes the actual where you are on the instrument might not lend itself to that kind of phrasing. You know, so I might phrase that thing like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, where I put all those that slur and keep that phrasing sound consistent. So I'd have to change string. You know. So and there's a bunch of ways you could do that. You know, you might go. But if you stay in position, you run into a problem here, right? Because you can't.
Because of where the accent is.
Yeah, and where the where you have to cross the string. So that's one thing of just using slurs can make it sound.
This is kind of more for my own curiosity. So forget you guys for a second. Is that something that you notice if you're transcribing anyone from Wes to Schofield or whatever? Do you think they're thinking in terms of that, or are they using like just their picking technique or picking dynamics to achieve the same effect?
Sure. I mean, I think that's it's a part of their language, isn't it? But like someone like Wes, because he's just using his thumb and he's mainly using downstrokes. He does occasionally use upstrokes as well, but it's mainly downstrokes. If you actually try that, just try playing a line or try playing, let's say, a scale or something. It's like an A minor scale, and I'm just putting the slurs there. You kind of get a natural inbuilt phrasing just because you can't pick everything. So you have to use some slurs to hammer on.
So on those lines, he's quite often using that sort of slurs and slides rather than thumbing every note.
Yeah, he's definitely not picking every single note.
I often listen to it and just go, "How on earth did he just do that?" With his,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hadn't really thought about him doing that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good way of getting into the phrasing.
Sorry to take up your lesson time. Okay, so yeah, it's worth thinking about the positions and or the way that you're playing a note or a line.
So that's for this hand, for the fretting hand, but then for the picking hand, you could do the same kind of thing where you can be kind of more dynamic with the way that you pick. So just having the control to play that same thing, but going. You have to put accents and being able to play a quiet note and being able to play a loud note. And a simple exercise that you could do for that would just be to, let's say, play a scale and just accent all the downbeats. So just go. And the way I think of it is, if you think you have a sort of dynamic meter of loud and quiet, you make the loud note super loud, almost like you're breaking the strings of the guitar, and the quiet note you want to sort of not hear it really at all. So like, and that's just I'm not suggesting that people play like that, but that's just to sort of work out, get control of the pick, so that you can, if you're playing a line. You've got control over the phrasing and how you want that to sound.
Absolutely. That's a really good tip right there. So there's another little mini lesson on picking. So I've mucked around with the single notes and I've worked on my absorbing some jazz juice, because that's just such a great phrase. Where do we take it to from there?
Next, I'd say the next level would be to try and use the triad to apply to those chords. So if you're playing an A minor chord, you want to play an A minor triad. And the triad is just the root, the third, and the fifth.
Yep.
So here's an A minor triad. Okay.
So this is just on strings 4, 3,
and 2. So
7th fret, 5th fret, 5th fret. Yep.
Yeah. So this is like another thing of when you're practicing, when you're trying to sort of take on this information and apply it to the fretboard. The fretboard it's a kind of big playground, So the more you can kind of shrink it and just focus in on one specific little area, the easier it is to actually use that information, So instead of using the whole thing, I would just use this one little bit.
And would you, when we chatted about this earlier, you just used the one triad shape, so you used A minor that way, and then D,
and then G here, C, and then F sharp diminished.
Okay. So that's one triad shape some of you might not know. In this particular case, it's 4th fret on the 4th string, 2nd fret on the 3rd string, and 1st fret on the 2nd string.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
I think I did.
It's like a minor shape, but with you take the 5th, this note, and drop it
back
a fret.
one fret.
And then B, and then E minor. Like that.
And how would you use it? Like,
I would
just play them up and down. Do.
Yeah, to start with, you have to sort of just get the stuff under your fingers, and one way to do that is just to jam, just to play them over and over again, but just
So
maybe you take the first one and just try and invent some way of playing that rhythmically, and then just apply that to all the other ones. So, for instance, let's say I went. Like that. So that's what that's going to do is it's going to what do you call it? Like just
consolidate,
burn that information.
Okay.
Consolidate. That's the word I was looking for. Get all that information under your fingers and into your brain, into your ear. Really important. And then you start to sort of just play around with that. So I mean, I guess we could just run that 8 bars, or something like that.
Yeah,
we'll just loop that bit.
Which would be a great thing to do if you've got a looper pedal, is just to loop the rhythm and play over it. Something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Really nice.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've actually never done that sort of triad
Yeah.
stuff. When I learned it was trying to play. I'm not sure exactly where I got it from. One of those jazz books that said that you should always try and do everything in position.
Sure.
So it was trying to learn the whole A minor arpeggio, then the D7 arpeggio, and then the G and C, everything in position all the time.
Yeah.
But I found that infinitely harder than that would have been.
Well, it is, because I guess that's sort everything's in one place there. You know, it's harder to sort of see.
Well, it's a different pattern for every arpeggio. None of them the same visually. They're all
For sure, yeah. So you're sort of blocking it out there and making it. And the thing I like about that kind of way of doing it, or that exercise, is that you can straight away. It's it's a bit of work, like maybe 30 minutes or something, where you're just getting the shapes under your fingers, but then straight away it's like, okay, now what can I make out of that? You're still limiting it, so I'm saying just use these triads. Don't go, don't play all the other notes. Just use that. But then, what music can you make out of it? What how useful can you do? So it's working on your your own kind of improvisation muscle, if you like, or something.
Yeah, that's cool. And then I'm just trying to give the people out there a pathway. So that's probably a week or two's work. If where would your next step be beyond just looking at the triad? Would you then just extend the triad to sevenths, or would you then start looking more at lines, or incorporating bits of scales, or changing the sevens to the nines? That kind of
right.
Where would you?
I would suggest that, because the thing with that, when you're playing just these shapes, we're leaping about the fretboard quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like this. So the next step for me isn't really to extend it. It's more just to use the inversions of the triad to make it so that you can kind of stick in the same place. So the next stage, I would say, use the inversions of these chords and work on each one individually. So
still triads though.
Yeah. So like, here's the first, and still on the same string set.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's A minor. Okay. Let's start. If you start with the second inversion, it's kind of a little bit easier because it's the kind of shapes that you already know.
Okay.
So that's an A minor is here.
Yeah.
And then a D is this one, which is kind of like that shape. G, C. And then this one's a bit different.
So you'd be using that first or second inversion, but still jumping around the next. So still not actually playing in the one.
Not yet.
Zone yet.
Yeah. So still just working on this, getting this stuff together. This is an F sharp diminished, and a B, and then an E minor. Do the same process. You just play around with that for a while, get it so that's that feels comfortable. Then do the first inversions. So the first inversion, is this one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an A minor,
mm-hmm.
then D, G, C, F sharp, B, and then E minor. Like that. Do the same thing.
That's already quite a lot of work, I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean,
to learn all of those triads, would be a few months' work for a normal
sure.
student.
You know, it's like you have to take your time with it. You know, but it's you know, the less there is to juggle, the more, you know, the easier it is to kind of get stuck in to the actual what's actually going on. Whereas with the scale, it's like it's 7 notes to juggle, and you have to play a good note on the chord. It's a lot of that's a lot of information. You know, so in that kind of zone, you know, if you're working with scales and you're playing a piece like this, which is kind of in one key, it's so easy to kind of revert back to just playing in the key, you know, just playing in G and not really playing on the changes.
It seems to me like this would be a really good way of developing a concrete foundation to be able to go and explore other things as well when you get into lines or trying to play out of altered scales or whatever, that there's somewhere, if you find yourself in some place that feels a bit weird, you've got an easy place to go back to if you know all of your triad locations all over the neck. Really, I think, I
mean, personally, I think the triads it's so useful and such a great way of looking at that, just at that thing of playing on changes. You know, you could even take stuff you already know, like say if you know the you look at that, the Hotel California solo or something, and just think about what the chords are. You know. That weird note there. What's that? You know. So the chord is F sharp, and that's the third of the chord. You know, it's the good note in the chord. So things like that. Just knowing the triad, it's really super useful. You know.
Do you use triads a lot beyond beginner stuff? Personally, like when you're playing, because like you quite often, being an interested jazzer who's not very good, you quite often read about people that I really like talking about triads as being a super important thing, like Schofield or whatever. You know, it's like, but they seem to use them in a way that doesn't sound like what we're talking about.
Sure, I mean you can.
That's a whole nother.
That's for we could let's like move it on just one more step, and then we'll keep doing that.
Okay.
You know? So once. You know, and it's going to take time, you know, to just learn those triads. But once you know those triads, then you can kind of just connect them to the nearest one. So if you started here on this A minor, then instead of doing this where you're leaping around to the D, you can just, because you know the other ones, you can just kind of smoothly move to the next D, which is there, and then to the next G, which is here, and then the C.
That strikes me as something being really good to do with the chords as well as being able to play the lead thing.
Totally, yeah. Useful. Super. I mean, the triads as well, obviously useful for any kind of music. You know, I mean, it's a fundamental.
This kind of voice leading approach is really super useful.
Yeah. That's the F sharp, and the B, E minor, and it just keeps going. A minor. Okay. So, you know, just that whole run there. If you can learn that, do that, then you can
improvise within that.
Yeah, and it's kind of just the line's going to connect up a little bit more because the notes are closer together. You know, so.
It's funny, I was just talking about on the weekend at this guitar seminar about making changes in a blues and how clearly you can hear it, but using triads like this, it's so really obvious. You didn't need a backing at all for that because you can really hear the changes.
Because it is the changes.
It is the changes. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's not, but you're still playing single lines, but you know, becomes pretty obvious. Okay, that's already much longer than I'd anticipated, but I'm hoping that you really enjoy it. So if you want to see some more stuff with Mike, then go and check out electriccampfire.com. I'll leave a link in the description below. really strong community thing there, I see. And
Yeah.
you set challenges and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, we do. There's it's a membership site. There's 25 courses. There's community thing with challenges and particular places where you can learn. Let's say Autumn Leaves. There's a thread where everyone's trying to learn that tune. Gosh, what else? There's lots of things, and there's like private coaching as well, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I find it useful. If I'm not that I'm ever bored, but if I'm looking for something new to sink my teeth in, I wander over to the Electric Campfire and have a look. So hopefully you'll do the same. And thanks so much for coming down.
Thank you.
See you all in Internet Land very soon. Bye bye.
Cheerio.